Hey gamers, in this video we'll be going over some tips for new and old DPS players alike. Before we get into our tips, the new GameLeap Overwatch 2 website just released the other day and is constantly being updated with new guides for every single hero. Make sure you check it out at GameLeap.com or the link in the description and sign up so you can start ranking up today. Alright, my first tip is for all of the short-range DPS heroes that you're going to be playing, things like Reaper, Mei, Tracer, Sombra, maybe Genji, these heroes absolutely want and really just need to be playing near their team most of the time. While some of them can easily pull off 1v1s, especially good Tracer, Reaper, and Genji players, you really want to be focusing on your team play with these heroes. The reason that you want to be doing this is that a lot of the times your other DPS, maybe your supports or your tanks, are going to be getting certain heroes low, and if you're not near the team and you're not ready to follow up, then these opportunities can easily be wasted if you're out of position. Whether you're on the front lines with Reaper or Tracer or just in the back line with Genji, this means making sure that no matter where you are currently, you're always looking back to check where your team is at every 5 to 10 seconds, and if they're too far away to actively engage the enemy team, then you need to make sure that you're waiting for your team to arrive at the right place so that you can engage on the enemies as your team does. This is because I see a lot of DPS players trying to fight the enemies before their team even reaches the objective, and they'll either die or they'll waste a lot of their cooldowns as their team is getting back into the fight. And while if you have a control point and you're trying to stall it, this is a fine play, but if the enemy team controls the objective and you are trying to engage them before your team gets there, whether you're wasting an ultimate or cooldowns or you're dying, then your team is most of the time going to get to the objective as you're dead or as you are out of the fight, being forced out early by the enemies, and then the enemies are going to easily be able to fight your team because they're down a player, and the enemies are going to have cooldowns as your team gets into the fight. So you always want to be checking where your team is before you're actually engaging with the enemies. And if you're mid-fight and you and just your tank are fighting and you haven't really looked behind you to see what's going on, make sure you just take a look behind you real quick, just see what your supports are doing, see if they're getting dove. A lot of the times you can easily prevent your supports getting dove and your tank just dying in general by just taking a look behind you and making sure that people are actually there ready to fight with you. My second tip is that if you are playing against an enemy composition that has been easily destroying your tank and running you over, you want to try and take up less of your team's healing. Whether this is swapping heroes to a hero that can sustain on their own better, maybe Soldier or Tracer, or just playing smarter so that you aren't taking the attention of whatever healer you have away from your tank. Some good ideas here would either be playing right next to the healer or a little bit in front of the healer so that they don't have to look far to find you when you're spamming the need healing button. A lot of the times whenever I'm playing healer and my Tracer or Genji is in the enemy backline spamming need healing, I have to take away precious time from healing the tank so that I can look at my Tracer or Genji who is spamming need healing and I can actually heal them. But a lot of the times my tank is either going to take a lot more damage than I intended and actually get bursted down when I'm looking at another player, or the tank is going to end up losing the battle in the long term because the enemy healer did not need to look away from their tank. So as a DPS player, you need to try and take this into account. Even if you're kind of low HP, try and get in front of your healer so that they can actively heal you while still healing the front line instead of having to either turn around or look for you in the enemy's backline. You can also play around health packs a lot better and make sure that you are taking less damage by either playing near health packs and using them a lot more, or playing in safer positions so that your healer doesn't have to actually heal you as much. Now third, we will be using the new ping system in the game or just simple voice communication to make callouts to your team or just pinging whoever you're planning to fight, and or even just typing to your team the hero that you're going to focus most of the time in game. This is a very simple strategy that can easily allow you to win team fights off of the back of just simple focus fire. If you're trying to implement this strategy, you're constantly making good callouts and calling who you're going to focus, and either none of your teammates care or just aren't responding or not even focusing your target, you can actually change up this strategy a bit, and instead of trying to get your team to focus your targets, try to play either behind your DPS or near your other DPS or even your tank and focus their targets instead. Whether it's your Zarya focusing the enemy tank or your DPS trying to flank, try and focus the same target that they're focusing so that you can focus fire even though no one on your team wants to communicate and be a team player. This can be a very easy way to burst down enemy tanks or DPS that might be a big issue so long as you are being very aware of your team's focus and following up on it. Fourth, this one is definitely one of the more important ones for actually winning games and fights. You need to be watching out for enemy cooldowns. Pretty much no matter what hero you're playing, if you can track that Zarya just used 2 bubbles, there is a small window of time that Zarya will be completely helpless unless she has a lot of help team, of course, and with that time of her bubbles being down, you can easily call out that she has no bubbles and call your team to focus her, and that can be a super easy fight win just because you knew that she used 2 of her bubbles. This should be combined with our last tip, making sure that you're calling out for your team any big cooldowns that you see. Things like movement abilities, whether it's Kiriko teleporting into your team. For 6 seconds, she's going to be a free kill, but if you wait way too long to say anything, or if you just try and kill her on your own, chances are she's going to escape with her teleport because it's on such a short cooldown. Same with if you were to see a Widowmaker using her grapple, then you would want to call that out, and even though you may not be able to follow up on it, maybe your Genji or Diva could easily follow up on it so long as they know that Widowmaker has no grapple. This can be incredibly useful for things like ultimates, where if you see an Ana use her sleep dart or nade, then you could tell your Genji that it's a very easy blade and you should be able to dive the enemy supports. Or if Moira just faded away, then that's another great time to use your Genji blade. Fifth, you need to make sure that you're picking heroes that work well for the map that you're playing on. For example, on Gibraltar, you would want to try and pick heroes that have better vertical mobility like Genji, Hanzo, or Widow, and for control maps, you probably don't want to be playing sniper heroes like Widowmaker, where you really won't have great long sightlines and you'll probably just be getting overflanked every fight. This isn't to say that you can't play every hero on every map, it's just a lot harder to make some heroes work on some maps than it is for others. Lastly, let's talk about comboing our ultimates. Whenever you're playing DPS, depending on the hero, you probably won't be getting too much value out of your ultimate alone. Without some help from your team, it's very difficult to actually make DPS ultimates work. If you think about things like Soldier 76 ultimate, that can be incredibly strong, but if you're not getting the support that you need from your team, whether you're running behind the enemy team and trying to shoot past their shields, you're gonna need that healing from your Ana or the nano boost or pretty much any other support from your team, or else it's not going to actually become effective unless there's other circumstances. And this can actually work both ways. Some tank ults need follow-ups from your DPS to actually get the most value out of it. Things like Zarya Grav or Sigma ult can be extremely strong, but if the enemy team is just healing their team while they're in the ultimate, then it's gonna be very difficult for Zarya to actually finish them off or for Sigma to finish them off. So make sure that as a DPS, as soon as you get your ultimate, make sure that you're pulling up the scoreboard and you're looking at which one of your teammates have available ultimates, or you're just looking at which one of your teammates can easily combo with you, whether it's a Mercy and you have Blade, or if you have a Kiriko and you have Pharah ultimate, then just call out, hey, look for me, I'm gonna use my ult, please use your Suzu on me so that I can stay up. It can be a very simple dialogue between you and your teammates so that you can easily combo your ults. Now, a little bit of a checklist is after you use your scoreboard to look at your teammates' ults, then look back at your team, make sure that they're actually in position to use the ultimate that you wanna combo with, and then finally, you can communicate that you are wanting to use your ultimate, whether that's just spamming it in chat that you have it ready, or asking that specific person to use their ultimate in combination with yours. This can greatly increase your odds of actually making a good play with your ultimates and to win the team fight overall. And that is all I have for you guys for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.